For this little project, I'm going to make a cone that I'm going to sit a half-drilled pearl on the top so that it looks like an ice cream cone. So to make the cone, what we do is we draw the shape of our cone. Full size. Now this bit here is 6 millimeters because that's the size of my pearl. And I want the pearl to sit on top of this, so I know that the diameter times pi gives me the circumference of a circle, which is what I want for this. Now, if it were a bezel to go around the outside, we'd add the thickness of the metal. We're not going to do that in this case. So what we're going to do is just put the point of our verniers here, and we're going to scribe a semicircle. And then we're going to take 6 times 3.14 and we're going to measure that far around this semicircle. Draw a line from the point, and that will be the shape that we need to cut out our cone. So here is my original cone, and there are 2 more. So now I'm going to cut this out, anneal it, and use my flat round pliers to form it. Now this material is 0.7 thick, so it's fairly thick, and it'll take a bit of pushing to get this in a proper shape. Okay, the material's annealed, and you can see the shape. And I'm just going to use my half-round pliers and the bench peg to roll that in to shape. And because that end is open, I'm going to use my parallel jaw pliers to kind of squeeze that into shape. We just need to get the sides together so we can solder it. Okay, this is overlapping a bit, and I'm just going to take my saw and saw down through the join, holding it against my bench peg, holding the cone against my bench peg. So now I have a straight line where I've sawed down through. I can squeeze these edges over and solder it. I'm holding it joint up. I put a little bit of flux on it. I'm picking up 2 pieces of hard solder on my solder pick. Bring this up to temperature, place the solder with my pick, run it down the seam, quench it, and pickle it. So here's our rough cone. If you had a bezel block, you could just drive this down into the block and it would make it a perfect shape. But the bloody bezel block is $100. Who know how much more to have it sent if you're not in the US. So I'll show you a little trick. So what I do is I just take a series of dapping punches, starting with the small one, and because it's difficult to hold this straight up and down, I found that you can actually use the screw in your bench plate. Now, don't try to kill this because you'll make bulges in it if you do, but you can progressively work your way up. We don't really want to stretch it, we just want to make it round. Now, file the ridge where you soldered it. I usually hold it with my flat round pliers just because it's so small and awkward. Brace it against your bench peg. Number 2 cut Swiss flat hand file. Now, when I'm filing this, I follow the curve because I want to make this nice and round and pretty. And if I file it this way, it'll just make flat spots on it. So once you get it so that it's beautiful, use your 400 grade paper on your sanding stick. And you can see I'm still holding it in my flat round pliers. Now check the diameter. If you've made it slightly big, you can just file the top. So this is about 7, it's about 1 millimeter big. You can just brace it against your bench peg. File the top. You need it flat anyway. So just file until you can see a nice shiny line all the way around. Now I want this to look like an ice cream cone, so I'm going to use my checkering file, CHECKERING. And the checkering file makes these tiny grooves. So I'll go that way and then I'll go straight down. So that it looks like a waffle cone. Handy. It's not for smoothing, it's actually for making marks in the middle, which is a bit different than what we normally do. Now I'm going to drill a 1 millimeter hole right through, and I'm going to run my 0.8 square wire through and solder it just at the end of the cone. Hard solder. I fluxed the very end of this, and I have my solder on the end of my solder pick, so I'll just bring this up to temperature, place my solder, That's it. We don't want to flood our pattern. We just want to hold our square wire in the cone.